Travel Growth Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the Travel Growth Podcast. I'm Tom McLaughlin, founder of SEO Travel, and this is where I speak to successful travel business leaders and dig into the successes, challenges, and learnings from their experiences over the years, so you, the listener, can take away actionable advice to enhance your own businesses and maybe even lives too. My guest today is Riva Bacquet. Riva is the COO at SA Expeditions, a virtual travel company that specialises in curating bespoke, privately guided travel experience to the Americas and increasingly to other destinations around the world too. She's a strong believer in the power and responsibility of travel to create positive change, and she takes a unique, purpose-led approach to business leadership and team building. Trips created by SA Expeditions are designed not only to benefit travellers, but everyone impacted by them, from local communities to the people in the business who actually run them too. As someone who's clearly hugely driven by personal development, Riva has so much to bring to the table in this conversation. We go into depth on B Corp and the journey to get there, benefits of doing it and why B Corp is important. I'm personally fascinated by this topic as it's a journey we've embarked upon with SEO Travel, and I love hearing other people's experiences about it. This also ties into the wider conversation about purpose and what drives the growth of SA Expeditions, which is not your typical travel business, from its virtual initiatives to its direction, which is starting to veer towards becoming a tech company and an Uberized form of travel, as Riva puts it. She has some excellent tips for women in business and hunting balance as a mum, changing paths from being a DMC, and also what made her take a punt on a couple of guys setting up a new travel company many moons ago. I loved everything about this conversation. There's direct, actionable advice based on Riva's experiences. There's thorough, educated insight into business and travel, twinned with a nice dose of idealism as well. And there's also plenty of humility to show that Riva doesn't feel like she's got it all worked out despite having achieved so much already. We recorded this one in 2021 whilst the pandemic was still a big factor, but I knew as soon as we spoke that this would need to bookend the second season of the podcast as we squeezed so much into it and Riva shared so much value in what she said. I've no doubt you'll thoroughly enjoy this and you'll leave it with buckets of tips and things that you want to do, and I'm super grateful to Riva for coming on the show and sharing all this with us. So without further ado, this is me talking to Riva Bacquet. Riva, hi, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
It's been great getting to know you over the last couple of months. Obviously we kind of crossed paths. I think we got in touch with you to talk about maybe doing some work for you, and I found out a little bit more about the business, and as we dug into things I could see there was lots of interesting stuff going on, so I'm excited to kind of take that and that it's led to doing this, and I'm sure from what you're doing there's loads of fab stuff in there, so I'm sure the people who are listening will have lots to take away, and we'll have lots of interesting stuff to talk about.
And I'm looking forward to it.
Good stuff. So I guess to start at the beginning, why don't you tell us a little bit just about how you got interested and excited about travel in the first place?
I really got the travel bug from pretty young. My parents they were actually both scientists and ended up doing conferences in Europe pretty regularly. So as little as 8 years old, I think they took me to Europe, and then so it was just sort of part of my life, fortunately, from very young, and I ended up spending all of my money and all of my free time growing up towards travel. So I went to a lot of different destinations with friends from very little, and even took a gap year between high school and college, and went to Europe for basically 8 months total, like 2 4-month stints to just backpack around, which was really the most incredible experience. And, never been able to do something like that, quite like that again. But that was all before college even. So it's always been a very important part of my life, traveling and getting to go to new destinations and see new places, new people, new perspectives. So it's just part of my identity.
Nice.
And
Nice. And was that like a normal thing when you were that age? Was that something all your friends were doing? Like you said, when you went and did the backpacking, was it like common to be going and doing that?
I'd heard definitely, but when I'd heard of others doing it, they were in their 20s. So I think it was pretty uncommon to go at such a young age. My brother had done it after college. He's a good bit older than me, so that was probably the original inspiration. And then I just had other friends that were kind of rebellious and wanted to do something a bit unusual. So I had, fellow comrades that were willing to embark on these journeys with me.
Yeah, nice. And what took you? Tell us a bit more about the journey then. From, if you did that, like you said, before college, maybe take us the next stage. So from, I think you said you went to Pitzer College. So maybe kind of take us from there, how your experiences there molded what you then went on to do, and I guess just like a brief overview of what filled that gap between there and getting to working at SA Expeditions.
Pitzer College is a liberal arts school, and they really value international and intercultural perspectives, and so they were very encouraging of doing study abroads and taking a global perspective on just about anything and everything. So in college, I ended up going on this really unique study abroad to Argentina that studied kind of the whole southern cone. So Argentina, Uruguay, Brazil, and we got to travel around. And I ended up doing a thesis on the 2001 economic crisis in Argentina and how really the people reacted to that experience. And I just got totally enamored with the region. I really learned Spanish in Argentina, which is a very unique form of Spanish. So I really fell in love with it. And after I came back from that study abroad, I finished school and felt like I didn't quite have enough time there. So I returned and I went back to Argentina, and I went up to Salta, which is really close to the Bolivian border, so that I could get as far away from expats and Americans as possible and really learn Spanish faster and become more fluent in the language. And after a year of teaching English there, we were in the 2008-2009 economic crises in the US. So I wasn't too inspired to return back and, just fight with all of my peers for the few jobs that were available at the time. So I got invited actually to go to Peru, and I had been to Peru at 16 years old because my brother married a Peruvian. And so that was my last experience there. And I didn't necessarily think I'd end up going back, but they invited me to spend the summer at their beach house, which at 25, you just can't say no to. And so I went there for a few months, and then I ended up deciding to stay and try to find work and fell into the travel industry. And it was just like a natural fit for me because of how much I had traveled and how passionate I was about it, to go into, this industry where I could hopefully help others have the same kind of transformative experiences that I had had. And so I ended up starting small, working in travel in Peru, and 12 years went by and I'm still based in Peru. So
And what was that first job then when you started?
I was just selling travel, pretty kind of like more budget travel, but not necessarily to backpackers. It was really to all ages, but for destinations like Machu Picchu mainly, and a little bit of Argentina and Chile. And so I just had so much firsthand experience going to these destinations that it was easy for me to help clients, customize their own trips and get what they wanted out of their experience. So that's what I started with, and from there I ended up meeting Nick and Dave, who were expats in California as well, and they had recently come from having finished their MBAs. They're both about 4 years older than me, and they were excited about starting their own business and putting to work everything they had learned in their MBAs. So they co-founded SA Expeditions and brought me on pretty early. And so that was, over 10 years ago. And the three of us are still here working hard together. So it's a pretty incredible story, really, that we've stuck together for so long and been growing this business together.
Yeah, amazing. Tell me, put us in that kind of, paint the picture of you working in Peru. There's these two guys setting up their new business. I guess you must have been in a, I don't know, some sort of established place. What made you decide I'm going to kind of take a punt and go and work with these guys who have come from doing the MBA and just starting up a new thing?
They were super passionate about providing a form of travel that was meaningful, that was a really high quality product. They wanted to do things a little bit differently. They were, they were expats in Peru, so they were for many years. So they were super passionate about the country. So they were just really incredible partners to work with. I felt like I could learn a lot from them, and I really had nothing to lose. I was excited to get involved with a business at such early stages. I just felt like there was so much to learn and be exposed to, and so I just jumped on board. I thought, if this doesn't work out, there's plenty of other things I can go off and pursue. I never would have imagined, what it would turn into, but yeah, it was really fun in those early years, getting it off the ground, and there was a adrenaline to making sure that we earned enough money every month to keep the business going, and that pressure that I felt as their one of the only salespeople at the time to convince travelers that we were the ones to show them these incredible destinations, and so it was exciting. It was an exciting time. And I hate to be bored. I love to travel and do new things. And I guess this was kind of like a new way to pursue that in business.
Yeah. And what did your role look like when you were starting there? You said, was it predominantly just sales?
It was sales, but because we were a brand new company, there was a lot of structure being laid down. So there was a lot of debate between each other about, just the best way to organize things, the best way to communicate. So it was sales, but there was so much more to it to really refine the process and get the organization kind of, grounded.
Yeah. Okay. And so we'll come on to like what the business looks like in the present day in a little while. But yeah, take us on the journey then from jumping on board with with Nick and Dave to like the steps from there as it grew and other things that happened along the way.
Sure. The early years were really about, I think, refining the product. So we wanted to make sure that the experiences were top notch, that we were working with the best accommodations. And I don't mean necessarily like the most uber luxury. We were doing, strategically trying to cater to a higher end in the market because we wanted these trips to be really incredible. And if they were too, budget oriented, they wouldn't be able to fulfill that. So a higher end of the market, but not necessarily the uber luxury, because our goal was to be able to give you the most bang for your buck, really, so that you could get a really valuable, really quality experience without breaking the bank. So we were working to partner with accommodations that were more boutique, were really oriented towards just a really quality experience, and also working with the very best guides that we could find, so that because the guide is everything on these trips. They are your host, your advocate, your friend, and they're the local that understands the local experience and can really help translate that for you. So and introduce you to people and places so that you have a really engaging experience. So we worked a lot on the product and the operational side of things in the early years. And then we actually decided to open our own DMC for a while in Peru. It was our main destination, being at that's where we were located and the destination we knew the best. And so we decided, we could probably do this just as well as anyone. Let's open up a DMC and get it going. And so that was a couple of years of really dedicated focus. And ultimately in 2014, we decided to close it because we were just overstretched, which was a really challenging experience. But we had learned so much in doing the DMC. in managing our own operations in Peru that I think ultimately it made us so much stronger. It was extremely valuable to understand our partners now going forward. But that was a phase in itself. So when we closed that business, we focused 100% on the U.S. business, the business that was dedicated to trip designing, and we actually transitioned to a totally virtual company at the time too, which was a big shift. And we went really inward. We felt like we had come a long way on developing the product, and we decided to focus more on our own business culture and making sure that our team which was growing every year, that they had, a really positive business culture, that they had professional opportunities, that they could expand their skill sets, and felt excited and passionate about working with us. So there was a lot of work and a lot of focus on that. So that was part of the evolution, a really important part of the evolution that we carry forward. And really the next phase was that we decided, we don't want to just give transformational experiences to our clients, but we want to make sure that all the stakeholders are benefiting from our trips. So we did a lot of, activities and focus on looking at our supply chain, looking at, how our trips were impacting like the local places and people and communities. And we were seeing a lot of, over tourism happening in certain destinations that were putting the destinations and the communities at risk, and thinking, how can we use our platform to build awareness about other destinations, to bring people to, there's these incredible ruins in Peru that see 10,000 visitors a year compared to the 1.5 million that go to Machu Picchu. So why are we all funneling into this one place and putting this incredible historic monument at risk, instead of diversifying and going to more remote places that can bring sustainable development to the communities in that area, help protect the landmarks that are disappearing? So there was a lot of focus on that. We went carbon neutral. I'm really wrapping up a lot of years in, but taking you through the flow of, kind of our evolution to bring us to where we are now. I mean, we even became B Corp certified, and have been carrying these values forward, and are really excited about all the other things that we can get involved with in the future.
Yeah, cool. There's a few things there that I'm going to delve into in a bit more detail, Riva. I think if we start with the kind of growing the business and like the team and the things that you mentioned there. So as a kind of headline, just to introduce it, tell us what the team looks like now in terms of sort of permanent staff that you have, and then you've obviously talked about that relationship with the guides. Like, give us a bit more insight into the structure and how it is structured at the moment.
Sure. So right now we are a team of, we have about 5 main managers that manage different aspects of the company, from brand to sales to business development to tech. And then we have another 5 that help with admin, with tech, with marketing. And then we have about 12 in sales that are the actual trip designers that are working with our directly with our clients to design the trips. And then we have a network of reps and guides across all of our on-the-ground partners throughout the Americas that we're partnered with to operate the trips. So this is standard in the business. Well, many clients might not be aware, but when you're working at a global level, with all of the different laws in place between countries, a single company is not actually a single company. It consists of a whole network of companies that work together to pull off these incredible trips for you. So you might have a transport company that's working with the local ground operator that's working with the client-facing trip designing business, and we're all working in coordination together across the globe to to be able to, provide a certain standard of a trip. And the way the trips are designed might be varied, business to business, depending on their values and how they're set up, their business model. But so we have guides that don't necessarily work directly for our business, but that are exclusive guides for our business. And what's unique about us is that because we had this firsthand experience operating our own ground operator, we really understand the ins and outs of how those businesses function, and have been able to work directly with a lot of guides to set up, a certain standard of service, and also make sure that they are receiving, compensation like in the most fair and ethical way possible, because you're working with, very varied standards of living across many different countries around the world. So there's just a lot of room for, I think, taking advantage of people whenever you have, multi-leveled global companies. And so we've always been really conscious about making sure that even the most underserved people that are part of our network are being seen and being hopefully taken care of. And so that was always a big part of it, advocating for their pay and building it into our cost model.
Yeah. And you mentioned, I guess, you're talking about culture there, and like you say, I guess that runs through not just the people who are, as you say, sort of directly connected, but all that wider team. If you've got guides who are exclusive to you, and trying to get that to run from top to bottom, how do you do that when you talked about the remote team and obviously people being spread out so much? How do you instill culture in that, across that kind of broad set of locations?
It's definitely a topic of interest now that so many more companies have gone remote. And I love that, because I think clients used to be a little bit confused or nervous about us being a remote company. And now that it's becoming more and more commonplace, that's dissipating. But it definitely has its own challenges. And what we do is, one, we get together in person as much as we can. So even though we are a remote company across the globe, and it is a bit challenging, whenever some of us are in, near one another, we'll promote, smaller, mini gatherings as much as possible throughout the year. And we always do an annual, summit where it's dedicated to bringing everyone in our network together. We've done it for over 5 years, where we bring together our guides, our exclusive guides, our design team, our admin team, our management team, our sales team, even the reps that collaborate with us in the ground operators that are partnered with us. We bring all of us together. So we're not even technically all, under the same business, but we're an umbrella of a network that together pulls these trips off and provides these incredible experiences. So we get everybody together, and we really kind of just do an incredible experience for us. It helps us reconnect to, why we are in this business. And it also allows us, an opportunity to just kick back and have fun together, build trust, build that bond that carries us through the year. To be able to work and collaborate more easily. Like our people on our sales team that are our trip designers will be, dancing salsa with our exclusive guides. And so it brings it full circle, so that our team really does stay integrated and knows each other quite well, despite, the large distances and sometimes very infrequent, engagement that we have with each other, depending on where you are in that network. So we do these incredible trips together, and we'll reflect on the year past and talk about where we want to go in the future. But more than anything, we just have a great time together.
Yeah. Can you paint the picture a little bit more of that then? What is it? How does it look? What is it? is it a weekend somewhere? Where do you go? Like,
we do
kind of, what does it look like?
We do like 4 or 5 days, and every single year we go somewhere different. And since we have been specialized in South America, the last 10 years, it's always been a different place in South America. So we've gotten together in Rio, in the Galapagos, in Guayaquil, Ecuador, in Lima. So we've hit a lot of different destinations. This year we're actually full circle coming back to Lima for our summit, where we were founded. And so the last time we did an event here, an annual summit here, was many years ago. So it's exciting for us to come back together in Lima, where it all began, and bring the whole team together. We're going to be in the Sacred Valley and going on incredible hikes, and enjoying the beautiful mountains. And I know it's going to be an incredible experience for the team.
Yeah, amazing. Who better to plan a trip to go there? It's a pretty easy one, isn't it, for all those people in that team?
Right.
And what about diving into the remote nature of things again, because you've clearly kind of been able to make that work, like you say, long before it became the norm more recently. Have you got any kind of advice, any things, what kind of systems do you have in place that have helped that work over the years to be effective?
Yeah, we use all kinds of applications to help coordinate with one another. We have regular standing meetings so that we can, at least as the management team, make sure that we're clear on what our goals are, and checking in to see what each other needs to help support one another to reach those goals. So there's a lot of coordination, but now there's just so many applications that can help facilitate that. So just about taking advantage, getting a system in place that works for you and taking advantage of that. And our trip designers are strategically, quite independent. So we do have a system in place where they can collaborate with each other and really pull from each other's knowledge and expertise. But the best thing that they can do is be out traveling. And so, it just doesn't make sense as a travel company to require all of your trip designers to sit in the same office every day. It doesn't make sense to me. They should be out. They should be out exploring and traveling and gaining that firsthand experience, which makes them, the expert to talk to in the beginning. So we are, we would love to facilitate as much travel as possible. We have that built in a bit to our structure to help them, support them in doing more traveling every year. And also giving them the flexibility and the freedom to be, sort of digital nomads if they want, and get out and explore as much as they can.
Yeah, makes sense. I guess for a lot of the bigger travel companies, like you say, the people who are selling the trips or planning the trips have never been to the place they're talking about, or they were there 5 years ago and so much has changed. And it makes perfect sense that those people should be out on the road, kind of in amongst it the whole time. And I imagine there's financial benefits to doing it that way as well, rather than trying to keep people kind of holed up in an office all in the same place, and all the overheads that come with that. Yeah,
there definitely is. Being able to use what the funds that would go to rent to instead plan these incredible summits for each other and support our team's travel, it's a huge benefit. It's a win-win for everybody. And I think for the people that work as trip designers with us, I think it's a lifestyle, and we're seeing that more and more, where people are integrating their work with their life, with their personal life, and finding the right balance there. But it truly is a lifestyle when you want to. I think when you're really going to excel at this type of position, to get out and travel as much as you can and weave that into your work.
That's an interesting topic, because that's something we're talking about a lot at the moment in our business, is kind of finding that balance between the personal and the professional, so that it's blurred enough that coming to work doesn't feel like, oh no, I've got to go to work on Monday morning. It's like, oh no, I'm excited to go there, so it doesn't feel like you're going to work anymore. How do you manage that balance with people where there is that feel to make sure the things are getting done that need to be getting done, and it doesn't kind of veer too far towards the going out and having too much of a laugh without doing the things that need doing?
Our trip designers do work heavily on commission, so it's kind of built into the compensation structure. They will get out of it what they put into it. So they're automatically, self-motivated to at least spend some time on the trip designing itself and not just the traveling. And then similarly, I think it requires that you just have a lot of trust in the team and work with good people that have, that are accountable, that have integrity, that are, and that are all believe in the purpose of the company. So, I mean, if you really believe in the purpose and you're excited about the work, of course, there's some level of, this is work, and, there's some days that it can be a drag, but ultimately you're excited about what you do, like you said, and excited to come to work every day. So it blends more nicely. And, our management team has unlimited, time off. So I think we are bonded and have worked together enough where we're all tied to this ultimate goal. We're all clear on how we're going to get there, and we spend a lot of time on working through that every quarter. So there's just a lot of trust that we're going to show up for each other, as well as give ourselves that time off that we need in order to be our best when we are working. And it really comes down to the individual, I think, a lot. It's a hard balance to find, and it differs person to person. So I think it requires that the organization be supportive and listen to each person, as well as creating a structure that really like supports this type of work.
Yeah, that's it. There's not a one size fits all that you just sort of force upon every individual that comes in, and they're expected to behave that way or adhere to whatever that structure is. Mm-hmm. They get the freedom with it.
Yeah.
Just going back to one of the things you said there's lots of tools out there that you can use in terms of the communication and kind of keeping in touch and things. Are you happy to share anything in particular that any particular ones that you use that you find helpful?
Yeah, we use Jira, we use Airtable, we use the Microsoft Suite, even Google Docs. So there's a number of different applications that serve different purposes among the team.
Yeah. In our kind of transition over the last 6 months, we switched to using Slack about 6 months ago and made all the communications open so that everyone could basically see everything, all the conversations that everyone was having, and it's had a remarkable effect on that, because we're trying to implement this scenario where there is kind of no hierarchy and everyone can get involved where they want to get involved and they see what's going on, but you have to have that transparency for people to see it, which when we were in emails, you just don't get that. There's so many siloed conversations that people don't kind of have visibility of. And since we changed to using Slack, it's been and using Slack in the right way. I think I've seen Slack used terribly, like many platforms. You can do it well and you can do it badly, but the person who introduced it to us and introduced the method of using it has been kind of really a pretty monumental change that we've seen since we implemented that.
Yeah, I've used Slack for, particularly when I was doing my MBA, I got to know Slack, and I can definitely see the benefits of it. We haven't transitioned to it as a company. Skype is still widely used in Latin America, and so it's been hard to let go of, and we might someday, I'm not sure, but we use it similarly where we have a lot of group conversations dedicated to different purposes. So you can get involved in the conversation or not and just watch. We also do these open meetings weekly where our core team kind of reviews what we've been working on and where we're headed for, the next week. And it's an open meeting, meaning that anyone in our network can listen in and chime in with feedback or questions if they have any. So we are a huge proponent of transparency too, and we usually put a lot on paper in emails and send out to the entire team, and are open to have really transparent conversations about just about anything in the business to anyone that wants to know. That's definitely a core value that we hold, and I think it's really important because it helps you stay accountable. So nothing murky is going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's been great for me in particular because it is that things, even just from a sense of making sure I do the things that I say I'm going to do. Suddenly everyone's fully aware of what those things are, rather than me being able to quietly get away with them and remove them from the list and no one ever to know they were there in the first place.
Exactly.
You mentioned there that the open meeting sounds great. You mentioned your kind of quarterly management meeting. I think you said that you have as well.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us some insight into what you cover in that? What's the nature of that kind of meeting to, again, I guess, stay on top of progress when you're doing things remotely?
We use the OKR system, and so we've adapted it to work for us. But it's basically consists of putting larger objectives that you have for the quarter and then outlining the initiatives and the key results that are going to measure whether you attained them or not. And so we'll put out our objectives for each quarter, or each even putting out objectives that last over several quarters, and the initiatives that we need to do to accomplish those objectives, and how we'll know if we succeeded or not, right? What the key results are. So we will prepare that for every quarter. We have mid-quarter meetings to check in and see how it's going, see if we've got enough resources, or if we need to abandon a certain initiative because it's just not working. So that system has really worked well for us. I know, different businesses use different forms of the OKR system or key results, but that's been the structure that's helped us. Yeah.
Okay. And in that, how many people are in that meeting with each other?
About 7 of us are in that meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is there, I think maybe in one of our previous conversations, you said that you kind of became a partner in the business with Nick, is that right?
Right.
So there's you two as the partners in the business, and then you've got the management structure as well. So if I could just kind of take that into kind of having a successful relationship with a business partner, and like how, I guess Nick as one of the founders initially, and then being someone who kind of comes in slightly later. What tips would you give? What advice would you give to keeping that kind of relationship, positive?
I think it's taken a lot of just open conversation and even working on our own personal development has been key. Myself, Nick, Dave, and Stacy, our sales manager, have all been part of the business since the beginning. And in 2014-15, when we closed that DMC, Dave actually left for a few years. And I came in as partner with Nick, and that was a time where we were kind of restructuring, and we went virtual and figuring out, how we were going to grow the business, what we were going to do next. And then Dave came back just before, the pandemic hit, and we're super excited to have him back. He was the operational manager for Cabify for several years, which is a major competitor to Uber in South America. And so I think he gained some really valuable skills in the time that he left, and he came back, and it has been pivotal in helping us grow the tech side of our business again, which is going to be essential to stay competitive, obviously, in the future. So it's throughout all of that transition, we've always remained friends. We've always been just real honest with each other. We've always wanted to support each other, wanted the best for each other, but also sometimes you just have to face the realities of business. So we don't like to like pretend that we're a family and that there's not like business involved in this ultimately, but we are all friends and want the best for each other. And I think having that at the core, that we're just, I think, genuinely good people has been key to keeping us working well together. That said, we have arguments, we have friction, and it just requires, I think, oftentimes looking inward and thinking, okay, what do I need to be like a better teammate or, better professional? I ended up going back to get my MBA. That was really important to me at a certain point. And so it's a balance of like thinking, what does the organization need and what does each individual need that's going to help carry us forward. And it might, and being open and understanding that like we might not all be able to work together forever. There might be times where we do need to separate, and that's okay too.
Yeah. I think changing the thing in your head to being like you want an outcome, and you're just always pushing to get the outcome versus thinking what are the things that need doing, and then we'll see what the outcome is when we do those things that are the right things to do.
I mean, you have a general like North Star, but you have to be flexible and be able to, shift and think outside the box and not be too attached to anything. And I think also a big lesson is that we have been doing our best to avoid, making decisions based on fear. So that's never going to get you too far, right? So whether it's like fear of, any potential outcome or change, it's always good to think about what's best for everyone as opposed to like making decisions out of a fear of a certain outcome.
Yeah. So you mentioned Dave coming back in and coming from Cabify. I think, again, previously when we chatted, you talked about having a kind of Uberized form of travel in the business. Can you tell me a bit more about what you mean by that and how, why do you want that? Why is it a good way to do it?
I think one, the goal is to allow the trip designers to have as much independence and flexibility as possible, like we talked about before. So how do you set up a model that allows for that? And one of the key components of that is having a really strong application at the center that helps you do your work, be efficient, stay connected, but not always have to be in the same room with everybody else. So Dave's been incredible at helping us develop that. We have our own proprietary system application that we're growing that allows for custom trip designing and quoting. And that's really, really hard to find in the business. There's some softwares you can buy off the shelf, but they don't necessarily, because they're supposed to be able to, tend to a lot of different businesses. They don't always tick all the boxes for what you need. And so developing a software that allows you to quote custom trips for small groups is extremely difficult and something that we've decided to embark on. And I think it's going to be the key to our success ultimately, because what it does is it allows the destination experts, our trip designers, to quote on the spot really high quality, unique trips and a new trip for every single person in a matter of minutes, and spits out a custom itinerary. This process usually takes in the business 2 days because it requires, the trip designer who may or may not know the destination, talk to the on the ground person who puts the quote together, who has to talk to the accommodations or to the tours to quote it and then send it back to you and then explain it and then back to, it's a whole process. So if you can condense that into 2 hours and have the quality maintained, that's an incredible, power. And that's what we're doing. And so just to bring it back to Uber, um, having a decentralized organization with a strong application in the sense like Uber, where people are self-motivated based on how the structure is set up, and gives them full flexibility to connect in and work when they want. That's the Uberized model that we're bringing into custom travel.
Yeah, nice. Are you morphing from a travel business into a tech business then?
Yes.
Is it something you're just using for yourself, or will that be something that becomes goes out to the masses to
possibly
use?
Yeah, it's on the horizon. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, nice. So you mentioned purpose earlier a couple of times. Take us into, and you mentioned the B Corp stuff as well. So take us into that kind of side of things with your purpose. What is the purpose of the business? How did the B Corp process kind of come about and, kind of intertwine with that?
Well, like I said, we really wanted to look inward and make sure that what we were doing was having a positive impact, not only on the clients, but everyone involved in our trips. So that starts with, our guides, like I mentioned, and also, of course, brings in the question of over-tourism. And so one day, Nick, our co-founder, called me up and was like, you know what? I want to hike the entire Great Inca Trail from Ecuador to Peru. And I wasn't even really familiar with what it was. And I was like, okay, let's do it. Let's see, where this goes. But the impetus was, he was hiking trails in California and thinking, all of these people come to hike these incredible trails in California, and they don't know that much beyond the 4-day Inca Trail in Machu Picchu, there's this huge network of, pre-Inca trails that actually the Incas used, for their empire. And besides the 3-day, trail that gets so heavily marketed, nobody knows about these other trails. And it's silly. We should hike it. We should build awareness around it and help pull that demand, spread it out across the country and across multiple countries, in fact. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site and it's disappearing. And so that's kind of where we started with him hiking the entire trail. We documented it. We have an ebook that shows the day-to-day experience. And then from there, we pulled certain sections of the trail that we wanted to highlight and work together with the local communities there on how we could bring, tourism to the area in a sustainable way and started promoting these trips. So it started there. From there, we thought, we got into reforestation projects. We went carbon neutral, and we thought, we wanted to do all these things in an authentic, sincere way. But we also I learned about B Corp and thought, this is an incredible shift in business that I want to be a part of, where any type of business around the world is promising that they're going to consider all of their stakeholders and not just, becoming the most profitable business, but thinking about, how being legally bound essentially to consider all their stakeholders. And I really believe wholeheartedly that that's the shift that we need to see in business, and consumers are starting to demand it. But the more we can see that shift in business around the world, the faster we're going to have, I think, positive impacts to save the world, essentially, on one cause at a time. And so it's a certification that I think is really powerful. It's not perfect, but little by little, if we can help educate people about authentic, positive work happening out there, because the B Corp process is basically a third-party audit of your business and how you are affecting workers, community, the environment. It's holding you to a very high standard for how your business impacts everybody, and it's an extremely challenging certification to get. And so it was also kind of an opportunity for us to see, are we doing what we say we're doing? Are we doing it well? Let's have someone else come in and dig through all of our inner workings and kind of put us to the test. And so it was extremely gratifying when we got it. And I also think it's a powerful tool to help clients know that, or travelers know that, this is what we stand for. It's increasingly hard to distinguish what's greenwashing out there, what's, what businesses are really doing behind the scenes. And so I think it's important to have these kinds of audits in place to help consumers understand, who they're really working with. So we went through that process, got B Corp certified, spent a lot of time and resources and money on promoting the grading trail in particular, and we're still behind that cause, and yet, interested to see what other projects that we can get involved with to build awareness, conservation, and support communities.
Yeah, cool. Can you give us, I guess, a few examples of the kind of, you said, getting the audit and digging around in the depths of things that you're doing?
Ooh,
Can you give us a few examples of that? Like how long did it take the process from end to end? Is it something you'd recommend, people who are listening who run small travel businesses? Is it something you would recommend to them?
I would highly recommend it. I mean, even if you just get started by taking the initial survey that they have online to kind of understand where you think you fall, and get inspired about changes that you can make, is a good place to start, because you can see, you can get a clear idea of ideas of where you can take things in the future, even if it's kind of a far away goal. So that's a good place to start. And that's kind of where we started. And we thought, I think we can do this. It took, I think 2 years. It was Corey, our brand manager, that really took the lead on the project. So she was gathering all the evidence and making sure that, and most of it we had, but then there were some small changes that we made, like we implemented a charity matching program so that our team could donate to certain charities, and we would match it through, for example, as one small thing that we implemented. It helped us get organized because they asked for so much evidence, and there were tons of things that we knew we did, but we didn't really have it tracked. So it made us, it challenged us to put things down on paper, gather all the evidence. There was a lot to do with our work on the grading trail that was involved, and how we helped support economic development of the communities along the trail and build awareness and work with different partners, not just in the industry, but governments, nonprofits, to help, build awareness about the importance of saving the grading trail.
Yeah. And then tying that back to the purpose again, I get on the website, you've got the three things. You've got community, conservation, awareness as your kind of three
pillars
things on the website. They're in a kind of practical sense. How does purpose kind of feed into what you do? I mean, there's obviously a crossover there with the things you're talking about with B Corp, but yeah, day to day, how does that guide what you're doing, what the business is doing? So the purpose itself is that we want to be a travel company that not only provides incredible trips for our travelers, but does act as a force for good in the world. So how that means protecting the destinations, like the delicate environments that make up these destinations. Perhaps it means supporting our workers, supporting the communities that are impacted by our trips, and so that's where the conservation, community, and awareness comes from. So one awareness pillar is building awareness around these destinations and the importance and the need and the how-to protect them. We're bringing all of these travelers to these destinations, and if we don't consider this, there won't be destinations to visit. I mean, how we conserve these places is extremely important, while still supporting, travel and allowing people to come and open their minds to new perspectives and new places. I think it's,
we can't stop traveling. It's like an innate human need. So how do we do it in a responsible way? So the awareness pillar is about using our platform to build awareness around these topics. The conservation piece is, like I said, making sure that the way that we travel is responsible and sustainable for these for the ecosystems that we're going to. So when you think about Patagonia, the Galapagos, all of these places are delicate, and we need to make sure that we're not bringing in, millions of tourists in a way that's ultimately hurting. I mean, if you think about the Inca Trail, it is regulated, which is super important, but I mean, you have people going up and down with horses, and the hooved horses are actually hurting the trail. The Incas used llamas to hike with as pack animals. So these things every single day, year after year.
It's my llama on the wall there, just for people who've got the visual.
Oh, I see. I love that. Yeah, these things year after year, I mean, they have a really big impact. So it's just an extremely important consideration to have. And then you have, and part of our work with conservation, for example, is partnering with accommodations that are taking these into account, doing making the travel be carbon neutral at the very least, and the reforestation projects that we're part of. So it's a start. It's not, you got to start somewhere. And then community, again, we work with really remote communities, and it's a really delicate subject about, how to protect the culture, these dying cultures, really. And it's not that, we're coming in and saving these cultures. It's about working hand in hand with these communities and to consider what they want, and do, if they want to stay in these remote communities with this lifestyle, or plenty of the younger kids are going into cities, and then they get kind of disillusioned with what they have to work with in the city, so they're coming back home. And if there's an opportunity to have valuable work because of travelers that are coming in to learn, to engage, that's a win-win. So working with communities throughout the Sacred Valley, throughout, along the Great Inca Trail, working hand in hand with each other to provide these incredible experiences to our travelers is a big, important activity of ours. And then that spills over not only to the communities, but the community of our business itself, our own workers, like, regardless of where they are in the world, whether it's indigenous communities, our guides in Cusco, our trip designers that, were born in Ireland, but now are living in Santiago, it's how can we just make sure that we're serving everybody that our business is touching?
Yeah, love it. Are there any other kind of businesses, causes, charities, brands that kind of you look at and inspire you in terms of what they're doing?
I think starting with even just all of the B Corp businesses, I mean, they're taking a stance to say that, they're doing business in a holistic way, in a way that that is having a positive impact. So Patagonia is a big one. It's a bit polarizing because they take a very specific political stance in the U.S., but they are really dedicated to doing good things around the world. And I just wish more businesses were more considerate of their impact on everyone. And so B Corp businesses for sure are inspiring to me.
Yeah. So moving on from that, tell us about, you mentioned Nick's Walk, that I guess in addition to all the good stuff that you got from a
research perspective, like must have been a good marketing activity as well to try and get the brand out there. So tell us about what, I guess you could talk about that from more of a marketing angle from when you did that and how you tried to make that work. And then anything else from a marketing perspective that you've done that's been particularly effective in driving business for you and helping you grow, or on the flip side, things you've done that just haven't worked and have fallen on their face and not really gone as well as you'd hoped?
Yeah, I mean, certainly we're still a business at the core. So in order to be able to do the things we want to do, we need to generate revenues and profits and all the work that we did on the Great Inca Trail. We all care very deeply about, and we're working to build awareness for, which is part of the marketing side of it. But it's also about, getting the word out there about interesting things that we're doing and wanting that to be sincere. There's plenty of, kind of silly articles you can put out there. So we really are trying to build true, quality content. And the Great Inca Trail was huge for that. We were able to get some articles out there in big publications, which was a bit of a first for us because we haven't really paid to play a whole lot when it comes to PR. So being able to get some good PR out of that based on the quality of the work, as opposed to paying publications to put our name in their articles, was really gratifying. And we really bring that ethos into what we do with content. So we have a really robust blog, and the articles on there are like journalistic quality, most of them. And so that's one thing that we do when it comes to marketing. We put a lot of time and resources into generating like high quality articles, and we share those through, email marketing, our newsletters, social media, and that kind of thing. And the bread and butter of our marketing has been really relied on CPC, Google and Bing and ads, keyword search. For better or worse, it's very efficient. So we've done that the last 10 years. Curiously, it doesn't work the same in all destinations. So keyword searches for Peru might bring in really high quality leads for us, but keyword searches for, another like Bolivia don't, for example. So it's not necessarily like a solution for all your marketing or needs, but it's definitely been really, really, really important to our success.
Is that based on pay-per-click or on organic when you kind of compare?
Pay-per-click for sure.
Yeah.
We have a ways to go on. We have so much to work with, but we have a ways to go on really taking advantage of SEO and and organic keyword search. So it's definitely on the docket for us to spend more time with and optimize. Historically, we have relied heavily on pay-per-click and just the activities that we're doing that we can get some good PR from. So and then we've played around. Like, for example, we paid for The Price is Right to be the prize on The Price is Right once, which was really kind of just fun to do. But I don't know how much return we got on that. It's hard to gauge. And
how did that come about?
They solicited us. They asked us if we wanted to be, and we're like, oh, let's try it.
Yeah.
I think it was more for us to be the prize on The Price is Right. I think that was fun than really thinking we'd get a whole lot of return on it. Another really, really fun thing we did was in the pandemic, we created these silly videos, like short clips that were kind of playing to the times. One had a couple that was, making sourdough. One was like of a guy, hoarding toilet paper. So it was playing into the times, and They were really entertaining, though. I thought they were so beautifully done. And I would have loved to broadcast them, across all social media. We put them on YouTube for a bit, but YouTube requires such heavy investment to be seen. And we just didn't have the resources, especially at that time. So I think they did get seen. They were entertaining. But they might have fallen a little short just because we didn't have the resources to really get them out there. And I think they could have gone viral. They were super great. But we're trying to try new things, and we're a small team ultimately. So little by little, but that was fun.
Nice. Very nice. What about the biggest challenges that you faced over the years? Obviously, we're still battling away against the pandemic. Anything else outside of the pandemic that you would say along the way has been particularly difficult?
The shift really from closing the ground operator and going virtual was a huge challenge. We had never worked virtually before that. I mean, figuring out how to run, the organization in a virtual format, and just all the shifts that we had to make to grow out of that challenging experience were, I mean, it was extremely eye-opening. I think it made us so much stronger ultimately, but it was definitely a tough couple of years to transition. So yeah, that would probably be the major challenge. And I just see juggling all of the different things that we want to do as a self-funded company is just like an ongoing challenge in itself. We've been able to grow a lot over the last decade, but because we've never taken outside investment, it's been at our own pace. And that's been extremely important in that it allows us to do things our way. Which I don't think any of us want to give up, but at the same time, you can only go so fast. And I think we were pretty conservative along the way too, especially with that challenge, early on, of having to close the ground operator. So probably in the last couple of years, what we've learned most is that we need to push harder to be a little bit less conservative, ironically, and take on some risk so that we can grow into the full-fledged, ideal business that we dream about. Yeah.
And what does that risk look like? Does that look like outside investment? Is that taking more of a a calculated jump on some things that where you're investing your own finances or things like that?
Yeah, I think we're still open to conversations about outside investment, but I think it does mean pushing forward to really just put more money into certain initiatives, and also take on the goal of growing faster. So we've been focused on South America, Peru, and Ecuador, grown to Patagonia. We're still pretty light in Brazil, and it's been a decade. And so now the big shift that we're looking at is going global and bringing this type of travel, private, custom, transformative, meaningful travel to around the world. So that we can offer more unique opportunities to our clients, so they can travel with us to more destinations, so that we can get involved in other regions around the world that we have less firsthand experience with now and grow in that way. So we're looking at opening, for example, Africa next, and eventually going global. So that's going to be a big change, and I think a way to force us to go big or go home, really.
Yeah. Just to tie this into a bit of a random one, when we were talking about the timeline before, and was there ever a point where, because I guess all these kind of things we're talking about here, these are proper business things, how to form a great business that runs well and grows and does all these cool things. when you started out, was that your mentality with it, or were you just joining something because it sounded like fun? And was there a point where, and if so, what was the point that you kind of went from, oh, this is a fun plaything, to this is a proper business that I want to do all these things with?
I think all of us in the business have a healthy dose of idealism. So I think that was always part of it from the beginning. We had big ambitions, big goals, but I think early on, we were just younger in our careers. You could only, you have to go through the evolution of and the missteps and to get where you are today. So I don't think we couldn't imagine what we had ahead of us back then, because we were just brand new. And and now that we've been through a lot of speed bumps and we're still working towards that same goal, I think we just have a lot more knowledge and expertise to work with, and a lot more maturity to work with to help us get there, and feel ready to really push now. Feel like we're finally ready. We've got a lot of things established to where we can take it to the next level. 1, going global. 2, doubling down on the tech side of our business to really make sure that we have the foundation to manage that type of growth and size. And it's not just about being the biggest. That's certainly not the goal. It's about having the biggest impact.
Yeah. There's a cool book that I'm reading at the moment called Small Giants that is a really good read on that.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, businesses that stayed small but had big impact. I would recommend it. You've clearly got just through that example of going from that stage of, oh, I'm going to dive in and have a go at this business with these 2 guys who have started something up, to knowing what you know now and the way you're talking about things. There's clearly like a sort of healthy appetite for learning and developing. You've mentioned personal development a few times, and then you mentioned about going and doing the MBA in the pandemic. Why did you go and do an MBA in the pandemic when you'd picked up all this practical knowledge of doing things?
I think I wanted to know, the theoretical side of things, and be exposed also to just more mentorship and more ideas. Because we're a small team, that's been I'm incredibly inspired by my coworkers, and they are, really, really great leaders and have a lot to offer. But we're a small team. And so I was kind of inspired to reach out beyond to a larger network of mentors. I joined a networking group for women in travel. I got involved with I did the MBA and made closer friendships with both my peers and professors. And so that was all extremely beneficial, extremely fulfilling for me at that time. And I needed to do it. I needed to kind of get out there and see what else was out there, be exposed to other ways of thinking. How did all these other big companies get to where they are today? What's the theory behind it? And it's not like it's all incredibly applicable to my specific business, but it was really, really helpful just for my own personal growth as a professional to have more exposure to all of that, and kind of understand where I sit in it, and also a bit gratifying to see that a lot of it I had gained from my own practical, personal experience in the company over the years. So it's a bit more of a validation experience that,
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
What do you do on a kind of ongoing basis to learn? There obviously is that just exposure to doing things, and you just have to, you come across a scenario and you have to work out how to do it. Do you do anything else to aid your personal development, just kind of on an ongoing basis? Listening to things, reading things, watching stuff, whatever it might be.
Yeah, definitely a lot of, I do a lot of podcasts. I love podcasts. So I do listen to
welcome news here.
I I listen to a lot of different podcasts on different topics that I really find interesting. I've talked a lot.
What kind of stuff? What are your favorite podcasts?
I've talked a lot about John McWhorter. To my friends and family, he's a linguist, a professor, and he has a podcast called Lexicon Valley that I love that talks about the evolution of languages in a really beautiful way. That's one example. There's all kinds of podcasts though that I love just for their stories, or even psychology based podcasts, news. So I definitely am always listening to podcasts. And then I like to read a lot too, books about like meditation even, and enlightenment. That's what I've been interested in more recently, at least. Yeah.
Another thing I'm reading at the moment on that front is a book called Awareness. I've got my kind of when I want to get in, when I was slightly more technical, but it's a bit more story led, the Small Giants one. But the other one is my kind of bedtime reading is called Awareness. And the name of the guy is escaping me. I think he's like Brazilian, or he's got a Portuguese sounding name, but I'll put it in the show notes after. But that's a cool book on that front as well.
There's one I just read about like personal power and actually goes through like each of your chakras. So it might be a little out there for people, but it's called Anatomy of the Spirit, and that was a really powerful book that I just read. So I love to hear what others are doing and exploring, and so books that talk about other people's work, business, whether it's business related or like spiritual related, it's all really interesting to me.
Yeah. Anthony DeMello, the guy is called.
Oh, okay.
I did it a Google, but that is a good read. I think the podcast world is obviously every man and his dog, including the one here, is starting podcasts up. But I just think it's incredible that you can now go and listen to conversations with the person who runs Spotify, or people who have just started these incredible businesses. The guys that have run businesses for 40 years. That's just
it's amazing.
Doing billions of pounds, and you're just listening to them talk about their experiences. I think I take so much from those kind of things that I just don't think you could get previously.
And speaking of marketing, it's an incredible tool too. The audio world that's growing, and it's something that I'm passionate about on a personal level. So I'm interested to get involved as well. I mean, what can we do when it comes to like Clubhouse, TikTok, the podcasts, everything to shift into to audio messaging, I think is really powerful. So I think that's in our future as well. We'll head in that direction.
Yeah, nice. It's been certainly for me, it's just been it's a great tool just for talking to interesting people, an excuse to get in touch with people and just say, hey, can I talk to you for a bit? And a lot of people want to, they're kind of open to that, and it's a good conversation starter. But obviously from a business point of view, it's really good as well. We've had people who have come on board and started as clients who found out about us through the podcast, and I feel like by the time they get in touch, almost the sales process is done. Like they've listened to us talk, they've got familiar with me, they feel like they've got to know me a bit more. So you're so much further down that route as well when people do it. Obviously,
it's so true.
Like what they're listening to, which I'm not sure everyone will, but some people might switch off immediately and never want to hear again. But there's more relationship building as opposed to like a blog post or something like that has less
super powerful marketing, and also just a way to be heard and make sure that people understand what you're offering, right? And have meaningful connections. It's with the changes that are coming in marketing too, like no longer going, I can't talk. We're no longer going to have cookies, for example, to be able to track people and remarket to them nonstop, for example, so there's this big shift towards much more authentic relationship building in marketing instead of, trying to like manipulate you into buying a certain product, right? And so it's more about just like, here I am authentically, am I a good fit for you or not? And I think that is incredible, and I'm excited to see how that shifts. And you can see big names trying to imitate that authenticity in their commercials and their marketing, but you can also see how that feels fake. And so I think these podcasts, for example, is an incredible way to have these authentic connections and help people understand what you're all about at the same time.
Yeah.
As one example.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Indeed. Yeah, absolutely. What kind of, how does your day-to-day look, Riva? What do what's your structure? Do you have routines, like habits through the week? You mentioned you've kind of got the flexibility in the team as to like how you work and when you take holidays and things like that. What does a normal week look like?
If I'm at home in Lima, I'm in my office here. Most of the day I'll, just typical things, exercise in the morning, take meetings, take some time to focus on, something that I'm working on, put on the music to get in the zone. My 3-year-old daughter comes home from school, have lunch with her. Maybe go on an errand. So the flexibility is awesome. It really comes into play though, in the sense of, how much I do travel. And so even though I'm not doing the trip designing anymore, I live between the US and Peru. I'm based here, but I go to the US very frequently. I have family there, I have friends there. I still feel very connected to the place in general, and so and the culture. So for me, going back and forth is really important, and I get stagnant if I just stay in one place. So going back and forth to the US, and also fitting in like mini trips. I've focused largely on South America because it's close, but that's going to change in the future. I have plans to go back to Europe finally, off to Africa. I wanna get out and explore more. But being able to work in a remote place where I can just, connect on my computer from anywhere in the world is extremely valuable to me, for someone like me that likes this lifestyle of being able to get out there and travel a lot. So I'll do like a long weekend in, northern Peru at the beach, and then come back, and then I'll work for 3 weeks from the US, but actually be at my computer every day. So it kind of just depends, and that keeps things interesting for me.
Yeah, nice. How do you, the kind of family balance with that? How do you manage that? Because that's from personal experience, I know the challenges of trying to run a business and then do, be the best you can be with the family as well is a challenging balance. It's
an ongoing challenge for sure. And I think just like finding the right balance for you of the personal and the professional, it's the same dance you're playing with your family life, making sure you have enough time for yourself, enough time for your kids, your partner, and just kind of go with the flow and do your best, because if you focus on the fact that it's never enough, you're always going to feel like it's never enough. So I just try to live in the present and be present in those moments that I'm in, which is not always easy. I can be stuck on my phone, and my daughter carries around a calculator as if it's her phone, copying me, and I'm not proud of it. But it's, we just do the best that we can. So my daughter, I take with me a lot on these trips. I have my mom that helps out, who's now retired, and we have a nanny here in Peru that I'll also bring with me a lot to travel, so I can take her around the world with me. My husband's used to it. I'm in and out of the house. I try to encourage him to come with me as much as possible, but he has his own professional obligations.
Yeah. Nice. Hey, she'll be a well-traveled little girl then.
Yes, she certainly will.
Okay, so time's absolutely flown by, Riva. So I'll start to bring it to a close. In terms of, if you're speaking to people, someone's listening who might be thinking of starting a travel business, or who has recently started something, what advice would you give to someone early in the journey, or thinking about embarking on the journey, that kind of shows the lessons you've learned from what you've done?
probably to reach out and network as much as possible to get information, get resources, get assistance. There's so much to learn. If I think back to the beginning days, I mean, we've come a really long way. So don't feel like you have to do it all by yourself. Like, you know, even if it's just through mentorship, through those networks, to get, you know, someone's half an hour here and there to get to pick their brain for their knowledge, I think is super valuable. Don't be afraid to ask for help, ask for information, because they can be everything, you know, to get you going. And just stay true to your own values, your own, you know, your own ambitions. Don't, like, keep your confidence high and get out there and just do your thing. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say, like, because a lot of people get worried about being criticized or taking a wrong turn and making mistakes. And I think there's something really valuable to, like, what that mantra in the tech scene these days of, like, fail fast, because you need to get out there and just try things and meet people and be curious, explore, and don't be afraid to make those mistakes, because that's what's going to make you stronger and help you continue down your path, not stay stagnant.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for just blindly diving in, isn't there? I think if you knew what you didn't know, then you'd never do anything. So you kind of just dive in and work it out as you go along.
Yeah, for sure.
But there's to the thing you were saying before as well about reaching out. I think I think when you first start out, you think, oh, I can't contact this person or that person. Why would they reply to me? And it's surprising how the more sort of ballsy you get with things like that of thinking, oh, I'll just take a punt and send an email to that person. If you do it in a very sort of targeted, bespoke, personalized way, and you're not just spraying out the same 100 emails to 100 people, and you actually find a few and go specifically to them, it is surprising how many people reply to that kind of thing and are willing to help in some shape or form. You know, obviously not everyone's going to reply, but you know, I've certainly had it where I've reached out to people who I see as the celebrities in the industry, and then they reply within like 3 hours. Just like,
yeah,
this is crazy.
I think that's been a big learning for me in the last few years, is just how willing people are to help each other. And I definitely feel it among women too, in a big way, because we want to support each other's success. And so tapping into that is just an incredible resource of your own network of people, and it inspires me to want to give back as well, and realize that, yeah, I have picked up a thing or two over the years, and if I can help someone out on their journey, that would be extremely gratifying for me. So that's been something I've been exploring, like, what can I do to give back to like younger generations coming up?
Yeah, love it. You mentioned you were in a networking group for women in travel. What was that called? Let's give it a shout out.
Women Travel Leaders. Yeah, Women Travel Leaders. So they're a new network of women in the industry, and it's been really fun to be part of and meet other women that are working hard to change the industry too, you know, alongside me. And so you know, they might even be competitors, but we're together. We are shifting the industry little by little, and I think in a positive way. So it's fun to share ideas.
Like it. Cool. It's been lovely talking to you, Riva. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Me, Tom.
Like I said, it's flown by. There's as anticipated. There's loads of excellent little nuggets there that I'm sure people can take away and make use of. To finish, anything kind of closing thoughts, anything else you'd like to share with people, and then let us know where to find you, where the best place is to find you, find the business, all the links and things like that.
Yeah, we're saexpeditions.com. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions. And I'm always happy to be a resource to anyone, whether it's to plan a trip or to understand our business model better, understand the B Corp process better. anyone can feel free to reach out to us and ask to talk to me, and I'd be happy to connect.
Okay, fantastic. Like I said, it's been great, Riva. Thanks so much for your time. Thanks for coming on, and I'll catch up with you soon.
Thank you, Tom. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
See you later.
And there it was. As soon as we recorded that episode, I knew it was perfect to see out season 2. Riva's got so much insight into both business and travel, and I feel like we only scratched the surface with that one and what she could have shared. So if you want more, you can find her on various social channels we mentioned, which I'll link to in the show notes, along with the SA Expedition accounts. There's also loads of other resources in those show notes, including things about the B Corp process and the Women Travel Leaders Network, which I'm sure many will find really helpful. And you can find all those show notes and links at seotravel.co.uk/Riva-Bacquet. So that's RIVA-BACQUET. I've loved recording the second batch of episodes for season 2, and I hope all of you listening have found them interesting and valuable. We're always looking for feedback and to get better, so please do email me on tom@seotravel.co.uk for any improvements you think we can make. Share your favourite things with us, or any people that you think we should have on in season 3. We are always open to suggestions, so please do get in touch. If you're a hotel or travel company looking for marketing support from people who really care about your success, then please do get in touch at seotravel.co.uk, and we'd love to hear from you. You can also read more about our 100% initiative there, which outlines how we give all the profit we make from the business to educational charities, both at home and around the world. We gave £25,000 away last year, and we'd love your support in spreading the word so that we can make that number even bigger in the coming years and hit our £1 million target. Finally, if you haven't already, please do give our other episodes a listen, which are all linked to at seotravel.co.uk/podcast. It's packed with value there for anyone who works in travel and anyone who wants to hear from like-minded people with similar challenges and interesting solutions. So yeah, please do go into the back catalogue and enjoy the insight and information that lots of intelligent people have shared there. So that's the end of season 2. I hope you've enjoyed it. I've loved doing it. Let us know on social media, via email, or in the comments on your podcast platform if you want to hear more, what you'd enjoy most, and we'll do our best to bring you more where that came from. Thanks so much to everyone who has listened, who supported us, who shared the word. We're extremely grateful for all the help, and we really want to keep making what we do better and increasingly useful for those that do listen. So please do reach out. I'm always on the end of the email. It's my contact. So yeah, please do get in touch, and I'd love to hear from you. It's time for a break now. So whilst we cook up some juicy ideas for season 3, please do dive into that back catalogue, make use of those ideas, put them into action, and then yeah, we look forward to coming back and giving you more things to work on in the future. So until next time, happy travels.